Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. They didn't mean to leave me behind. At least, that's what I keep telling myself. It started like any other Thursday. I was late to work. Again. My phone had died overnight, forgot to plug it in, and the alarm never went off. I live in the outskirts of the city, far enough from downtown that I don't hear the traffic, but close enough that I still get the spillover of noise when something big happens. That morning, there was a lot of noise. Sirens. Not just one or two, dozens. First responders. Police, maybe even military. I wouldn't know for sure until later. My apartment faces the back alley, and when I stepped out onto my small balcony to check what the fuss was about, I saw people sprinting. Not jogging, not rushing. Sprinting like their lives depended on it. I assumed there had been a fire or a crash nearby. I grabbed my phone, but, of course, dead. So I did what any sleepy idiot would do. I brushed my teeth, got dressed, and walked to the bus stop. That's when I noticed it. There were no buses, no cars, no sounds, except the distant echo of helicopters and what I thought might be gunfire. But it didn't make sense, not here, not in this part of the city. Things like that don't happen here. Still, something was wrong. I turned around to head back to my place and nearly collided with a man who looked off. His clothes were torn, like he'd fallen down a steep hill or been dragged across concrete. His skin was pale, and his mouth hung open like he'd forgotten how to close it. He didn't speak. He just groaned, low and rattling, then took a step toward me. I stepped back. Then he lunged. That's when instinct kicked in. I dodged hard to the left, and he stumbled past me. But before I could process what just happened, another one came around the corner, then another. All of them had that same vacant look, that shuffling gait, that hunger. It clicked. I don't know how. I'd never believed in these kinds of stories before, but something deep inside me knew I was looking at people who weren't really people anymore. And just like that, the world I knew ended. I sprinted back to my building, heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst, slammed the front door shut and locked it, though I knew deep down that a simple lock wouldn't keep them out for long. I lived on the 3rd floor, no elevator, only stairs. I took them 2 at a time, barely breathing, reaching my apartment and bolting the door behind me. Then I grabbed my phone, plugged it in. Nothing. No charge. No way to contact anyone, no internet, no signal. Just a black screen and the sound of something moving in the hallway outside. I peeked through the peephole. One of them was on my floor. It dragged a foot behind it, like it was broken, but it moved with purpose, like it could sense I was in there. I held my breath. 5 seconds. 10. It passed by. For a moment, everything went still. Then came the banging. Not on my door. On the apartment 2 doors down. A woman screamed. I knew her, Mrs. Sanderson. She baked cookies for the building every holiday, lived alone. The screaming stopped suddenly. I wanted to do something. Anything. But I was frozen. Heart in my throat, hands shaking. What was I supposed to do? 10 minutes passed. Then 20. The banging started again, this time more distant. I looked out the balcony window. The alley was empty. I could still hear sirens in the distance. But now there were other sounds. Growling, groaning, crashing. The city was falling apart 1 block at a time. And I was alone. Completely alone. Everyone had already left. And no one had told me. I don't know how long I sat there, on the floor, back against the door, gripping a kitchen knife I barely remembered grabbing. Minutes, an hour, the sounds outside faded, then returned louder than before, like a storm circling overhead. Eventually, I forced myself to move. I knew I couldn't stay there forever. The building wasn't secure. The front door downstairs was glass. All it would take was a few of them, pushing hard enough, and it would shatter. I grabbed a backpack from my closet and started stuffing it with anything I thought might help. Bottled water, snacks, a flashlight, batteries. I had no idea where I was going, only that I couldn't stay. Then I noticed something on the wall by the door. Red smears. Fresh. Not mine. Someone had been here. My stomach turned. I didn't hear anything. No footsteps, no groans. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was still nearby. I edged toward the front door, listening. Silence. I opened it a crack, slow and careful. The hallway was empty. But my neighbor's door, Mrs. Sanderson's, was wide open, dark inside. I took a step forward, then another. I don't know why I looked. Curiosity? Guilt? I approached the doorway, careful not to make a sound, and peeked in. Her living room was wrecked, furniture overturned, glass shattered on the carpet, and in the corner, I saw her. She wasn't moving. I looked away, I had to. But as I turned to leave, I noticed something by the door, a small radio, still working, a blinking red light. I slipped inside, careful not to step in the mess, grabbed it, and backed out. When I got to my apartment, I closed the door and turned the volume up just enough to hear. A voice crackled through the static. This is a citywide emergency broadcast. Residents are advised to stay indoors and avoid contact with infected individuals. Evacuation zones are active at the following locations. Evacuation zones. My hands trembled as I pressed the radio closer. Pier 14, the North Metro Station, and the Central High School Gymnasium. Do not attempt to travel alone unless absolutely necessary. Emergency teams will remain on site until 8 p.m. local time. I glanced at the wall clock. It was already past 3. I had 5 hours to get somewhere safe. The roads would be chaos. The main streets overrun. But I remembered a back route, a path through the alleys and service roads behind the train station. If I moved fast, I might make it to Central High. Might. I knew I'd be risking everything by stepping outside, but I also knew what would happen if I stayed. So, I packed light. 1 flashlight, 2 bottles of water, a few snacks, and the kitchen knife. I wrapped a towel around my forearm just in case, tied a hoodie around my waist. I'd read somewhere that extra layers might help if it came down to it. The city was warm that day, but I felt ice in my veins. I slid open the balcony door and looked down. No one in the alley. 3 stories to the ground. There was a fire escape to my right, but the first section had collapsed months ago. I'd complained about it. No one fixed it. Typical. But I had rope. Well, extension cords. I tied 2 together, wrapped the end around a pipe, and tested weight. Not ideal, but it held. I lowered myself over the edge, the cord biting into my hands, each second dragging out like a lifetime. When I hit the ground, I stayed low, crouched behind a dumpster, listening. Silence. Then, movement. I ducked as a figure staggered past the mouth of the alley. One of them. I waited until it moved on, then slipped into the shadows. My journey had begun. The alleys were tighter than I remembered. Trash bins overflowed and the stench was thick. Metal, mold, something worse beneath. I kept moving, gripping the knife, eyes darting between shadows. Every door I passed was either locked or hanging open. Every window smashed. This wasn't just a street problem, this was everywhere. I passed the corner store where I used to buy instant noodles. The door had been broken off its hinges, shelves overturned. A shoe lay in the middle of the floor, stained and alone. I didn't stop to look, not until I heard the crying. A soft, muffled sob, coming from inside the building across the street. My first instinct was to run, but something held me there. Someone else was still out here. Someone had been left behind, like me. The sobbing came from the laundromat across the street. The door was partly ajar, its glass cracked but not broken. The flickering light inside made shadows twitch across the walls like something alive. I knew I shouldn't stop. I had barely 4 hours left to reach the evacuation zone. But the crying, it sounded young. A child. I told myself I'd just peek in. If it was a trap or too risky, I'd move on. But if someone was really in there... I crossed the street quickly, crouched low, and pushed the door open with the tip of my shoe. The bell above the door jingled, a sharp, too loud sound in the quiet. I winced. "Hello?" I whispered. "Is someone there?" The crying stopped. Now, there was only the buzzing of a flickering fluorescent light overhead and the slow, creaking spin of an old dryer drum. "Please," I said, softer, stepping in. "I won't hurt you." A shadow shifted behind the vending machine. I crept closer, heart hammering. And then I saw her. A little girl, maybe 6 or 7, curled up between 2 laundry carts. Her eyes were wide, red-rimmed. She held a pink stuffed animal so tight it looked like it might tear in two. She didn't speak, just stared. I crouched, lowering the knife so she could see it wasn't pointed at her. "It's okay," I said. "I'm not like them. I'm trying to get somewhere safe." She still didn't answer, but her eyes flicked toward the back door. "I'm heading to the high school," I said. "There's an evacuation team there. You can come with me." Still no reply. Then finally, she whispered, "My mom went outside. She didn't come back." I nodded slowly. "I'm sorry." She stood on shaky legs, holding the stuffed toy to her chest. Her name, she said, was Lily. I offered her my hand, and after a long pause, she took it. We left the laundromat together. Now, I wasn't just trying to survive for myself, I had someone else to protect. We stuck to the side streets, weaving through alleys and abandoned lots, always listening for the distant groans and shuffles that meant trouble. Once, we had to hide behind a dumpster for 10 full minutes while a group of 5 passed by. Eyes cloudy, mouths slack, dragging their feet like their bones didn't work right. One of them stopped and sniffed the air, head jerking side to side. My breath caught in my throat, but it kept going, disappearing around the corner. Lily didn't make a sound the entire time. She was braver than most adults I knew. We reached a small park, one I remembered cutting through in the summer to avoid traffic. It was faster, but it was also more exposed. Still, we had no choice. The sun had started to dip behind the buildings. Shadows stretched longer, colder. We were halfway across when I heard it. A shout. Then another. Voices, human ones. "Hey!" I called out, waving an arm. "Don't!" Lily hissed, tugging at my sleeve. I paused. And then I saw them. Not rescuers. A group of people, 3 men, 1 woman. They didn't look infected, but they also didn't look safe. One of them had a pipe. Another held a baseball bat. They looked at us like we were food, or worse, resources. I grabbed Lily's hand and ran. Behind us, one of them shouted, "Wait! We just want to talk!" But I didn't believe them, not for a second. We sprinted across the grass and dove into a thicket of bushes on the other side, crawled through until we hit the fence at the edge of the lot. I boosted Lily over, then followed. They didn't chase us, but I could still hear them laughing in the distance. The worst part? They sounded normal. We were getting close now. The high school wasn't far, only 6 or 7 more blocks. I recognized a corner store where I used to buy cheap sandwiches after work. Most of the windows here were shattered. Some buildings were still smoking, and once or twice I saw movement behind broken glass. But no one came out. The city was changing fast. By the time we reached the street leading to the school, the sky had darkened to orange and pink. The streets were quiet. Too quiet. And then we heard the sound of a whistle, sharp, high-pitched from somewhere behind the school. Lily looked at me. "What is that?" "I don't know," I said, but I didn't like it. Not one bit. We hurried toward the entrance, climbing over a toppled barrier. There were signs posted, "Evacuation zone check-in required no entry after 8 p.m. It was 6:40. We were almost there. Almost safe. That's when the gate slammed shut behind us. The metal gate clanged shut so loud it echoed across the schoolyard. Lily jumped. I spun around, but no one was there. It hadn't been the wind. It was too deliberate, too timed. We were inside the perimeter now, just past the outer fencing and close enough to see the gymnasium across the lot. Its windows glowed with orange-tinted light, and I saw shadows moving inside. People. Real people. But something was wrong. No one was outside, no guards, no volunteers, no welcome party directing survivors to shelter. Just an eerie stillness and a gate that closed on its own. I kept Lily behind me, knife in one hand, and we moved across the cracked pavement, past overturned chairs and a parked bus with shattered windows. We approached the gym doors. That's when we saw it, spray-painted in big red letters across the wall. They locked us in. I froze. More writing followed beneath it. "Do not trust the ones inside." Lily tugged on my arm. "We can go somewhere else," she whispered. But where? This was the evacuation zone, the only one we could reach. If this wasn't safe, nothing was. I pushed the door open. The gym was crowded. People lined the walls, sitting on cots or the bare floor. Some had makeshift bandages. Some just sat and stared. Their faces were hollow. An older man near the entrance stepped forward when he saw us. "New arrivals?" he asked. I nodded, still gripping Lily's hand. He looked us up and down. "Check-in's closed, but you're lucky. You made it before curfew." "Who's in charge here?" I asked. He motioned toward the far side of the gym. That'd be Mason. He and the others from the fire department set this place up earlier today. As we walked toward the cluster of people gathered near a folding table and 2 battery-powered lamps, I caught bits of conversation. They were fine this morning. "No," he turned, "right there in the hallway. We need to lock the doors before it happens again." Lily stayed close. I could feel how tense she was, like a spring wound too tight. A man with a shaved head and a red jacket stood up when we approached. "You two just get in?" "Yeah," I said. "I'm with her. We came from Eastgate." "Long walk," he said, nodding. "You're lucky you didn't draw attention. Things are getting worse out there." He introduced himself as Mason. Said he was a fire captain before everything fell apart. He and a handful of others had organized this zone as soon as the news hit, but he didn't look like he believed it would last. "You're safe here," he said, but his eyes kept drifting toward the doors. "How long are we staying?" I asked. Mason hesitated. "Until help arrives." I frowned. I thought this was the help. He didn't answer. They gave us blankets and some stale crackers. We found a spot near the back, close to the emergency exit. I figured it was safer than being in the middle, surrounded. Lily leaned against me and fell asleep not long after. I couldn't. The lights dimmed at 8:30. Mason and the others barred the doors with metal bars and furniture, then posted guards. Just in case, one of them muttered. It was only then that I noticed something strange. One of the doors, leading to a hallway near the locker rooms, was padlocked shut from the outside. The kind of lock you'd use on a storage unit. And beside it, smeared across the floor and wall, more red streaks, not paint. I got up and crept toward it. Quiet. As I passed a cluster of sleeping people, I overheard low voices whispering. They shouldn't have brought him back. He didn't look sick. Doesn't matter, it spreads. We all saw it. I pressed closer to the door. The hallway beyond was completely dark. Still, quiet. But then something knocked from the inside, once, twice. Then it stopped. I went back to my spot, heart pounding, and sat beside Lily. Something was off here. Very off. This place might have been an evacuation zone once, but now it felt more like a trap. And I was stuck in it. Around midnight, a scream tore through the gym. Everyone bolted upright. Someone shouted, "He's turning!" I grabbed Lily and moved fast toward the emergency exit behind us. At the front of the room, a man convulsed on the ground, his skin pale, eyes wide and unfocused. Two others held him down as Mason barked orders. Get something in his mouth, hold his arms. The crowd backed away fast. I didn't wait to see what happened next. I pulled the door open and slipped into the night. Outside, the air was colder, the stars barely visible through the haze. Lily clutched my side. What's happening? We're leaving, I said. But where? I didn't have an answer. All I knew was, if we stayed in there, we wouldn't survive the night. We'd made it to the evacuation zone. But safety? That was a lie. We didn't stop running until we were 5 blocks from the school. The sounds of panic faded behind us, muffled shouts, a single gunshot, then silence. We found shelter in a library that had its front windows boarded up. The side door was unlocked, probably forced open earlier in the day. Inside, the air was musty, filled with the scent of old paper and something faintly metallic. I barricaded the door with a chair and dragged a tall shelf across the hallway just in case. We moved deeper into the library, into the children's section. It was surreal. Bright posters, a scattered puzzle on the floor, stuffed toys left behind mid-play. Lily sat cross-legged on a rug shaped like a cartoon lion. "We're not going back?" she asked. I shook my head. "It's not safe. Something's wrong in there." She nodded. "That man, he didn't sound right." "No," I said quietly. "He didn't." We stayed there for a while. I gave Lily a protein bar I'd taken from the gym and watched her nibble it slowly. Her eyes looked heavier now, like the adrenaline was wearing off, like reality was finally catching up to her. To both of us. I should have been exhausted, but I couldn't sleep. Instead, I walked the perimeter of the library, flashlight off, listening. Outside, the world was changing. Fewer sirens, fewer cars, more silence. And in that silence, movement. Not just shuffling either. Sometimes it was a burst of sprinting footsteps, then nothing, like something testing its limits. The outbreak wasn't slowing down. It was evolving. At around 2 a.m., I heard a crash from the front lobby. I froze. Lily sat up too, startled by the noise. Another crash, something heavy slamming into a bookshelf. then a dragging sound. I crept toward the front, crouched low, knife ready. The moonlight, spilling in through a broken corner of plywood, cast just enough light to reveal what had come inside. It wasn't one of them. It was him. The man from the evacuation zone. The one who had convulsed on the floor. Except he didn't look like a person anymore. His limbs moved too fast, too erratic. His eyes completely blank. No humanity behind them. And he was sniffing the air. I backed up slowly, turned to tell Lily to run, but she was already gone. Panic surged through me. I rushed back to the children's section. The rug was empty. "Lily?" I hissed, voice low. No answer. Then, from the hallway, soft footsteps. I followed them, heart in my throat, through the nonfiction section, past the circulation desk. I found her near the emergency exit, staring through the crack in the door. "Lily," I whispered. She didn't turn. "He followed us," she said. I reached her, pulled her back, just as the door gave a little shudder. He was right on the other side. I grabbed a thick dictionary and jammed it under the handle. We ran, through the back halls, past rows of magazines and storage closets. Behind us, the door shattered. Wood splinters flew past my head. I turned a corner and ducked into the staff lounge, slamming the door behind us and flipping the bolt. Heavy thuds echoed down the hall, then scratching, then silence. We waited for what felt like hours. Every sound became a threat, the ticking of a wall clock, the hum of a fridge. Lily eventually fell asleep again, curled on the couch under a throw blanket. I stayed by the door, gripping my knife with white knuckles. We were running out of options. Staying hidden wouldn't work much longer. They were getting faster, smarter. We needed to move again, one last shot. I checked my phone. 3:17 a.m. The map showed one more location. A secondary evac point marked near the city's water tower, about 40 minutes away on foot, through mostly industrial zones. If we left soon, we could get there before dawn, before the city changed for good. I shook Lily gently. "Hey," I whispered, "time to go." She blinked, dazed. "Is it morning?" "Almost." We gathered our things, what little we had, and crept out the back door into a loading alley. The sky was still dark, but the stars had begun to fade. We were quiet, careful, moving fast and low, staying between buildings and behind fences. No more roads, no more shortcuts. Just shadows and instinct. As we crossed into the industrial sector, I realized how empty everything had become. No cars, no birds, no life. Only a single figure far ahead of us, limping across an intersection. It didn't turn, didn't even notice us. But I noticed something else. It wasn't alone. Behind it, maybe 50 feet back, came another, then another. A slow procession of broken figures, walking the same path one after another, like they were being pulled forward by something unseen, something we were heading toward. We ducked into a warehouse, planning to cut through and shave a few minutes off the route. Inside, the air was thick with dust and oil. Massive metal machines lined the walls, silent now. Dead. We moved fast, weaving between conveyor belts and crates. Halfway through, I stopped. In the middle of the floor was a spiral pattern, drawn in something dark and dry. A message scratched into the floorboards with fingernails or a knife. "This isn't a disease." I stared at it for a long time. What was it then? I didn't want to know. We reached the water tower just after 4 a.m. There were floodlights still working, running on backup generators. A chain-link fence surrounded the platform. And there, just past the gate, was a white van with government markings. A figure stepped out. Not infected. Wearing gear, holding a clipboard. Lily gasped. A rescuer. Finally. The man in the protective gear raised a hand and waved us in. His uniform didn't have a name tag, just a symbol, a white circle with 3 lines running through it. I didn't recognize it, but I didn't care. We made it. I tightened my grip on Lily's hand and stepped through the gate. "Are you both unbitten?" he asked, clipboard ready. "Yes," I said. "We came from Eastgate. We were left behind." He didn't flinch. "You're among the last. We're consolidating survivors here before extraction." "Extraction?" I asked. "Where?" He hesitated, then smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. "Someplace safer." He scanned us with a small handheld device, checking something I didn't understand. It beeped twice, green lights both times. "Follow me." They had converted the base of the water tower into a makeshift triage zone. A few tents, some floodlights, portable medical equipment. There were other survivors, maybe a dozen, sitting on benches or lying on stretchers. Lily spotted a little girl her age and drifted toward her. I stayed close to the van. That's when I noticed it. The rear doors weren't just closed, they were locked from the outside. Thick metal bars sealed the back. A keypad, too. And faint sounds from within. Breathing. Scraping. I turned to the man in the suit. "What's in the van?" He didn't answer. Instead, he radioed something in a language I couldn't place. Short. Clipped. Then he looked at me. "You need to sit. Rest. You've done well surviving this long." Something about how he said it made my skin crawl. Like he was surprised I'd made it, like I wasn't supposed to. A siren in the distance echoed through the valley. Not an emergency siren. Something else. A low mechanical tone that grew louder, then stopped. Above us, the water tower lights dimmed for just a second. All the rescue workers froze. Then resumed like nothing happened. Except now, their movements were different, more synchronized, more rehearsed. I moved back toward Lily. "Hey," I whispered, "stay close, okay?" She nodded. "I don't like it here." "You and me both." A voice crackled over the loudspeaker. One of the workers had wheeled out a speaker system while I wasn't looking. "All remaining civilians prepare for relocation." People stood up slowly, unsure. "Where are we going?" someone asked. "Secure transport has been arranged," the voice replied. "You'll be taken to the outer cordon for evaluation and safety clearance." Evaluation. I didn't like the sound of that. "Come on," I told Lily. "Let's go check the perimeter again." She didn't argue. We slipped around the back of a tent, sticking to the shadows. I had no plan, only instinct. Then we passed one of the supply tables, and I saw it. A map. Marked in red were major areas of the city, crossed out, but what chilled me was the note scribbled in the corner. All Zone 7 survivors flagged for Phase 2. I didn't know what Phase 2 meant, but I didn't want to find out. We ran. Slipped through a gap in the fence near the generators, and didn't stop until the tower was a silhouette behind us. The sun was rising now, bleeding through the smoky sky in hues of dull gold and orange. We made it to a hill that overlooked the edge of town. From there, we could see the neighborhoods we'd crossed through, the school, the warehouse, the quiet streets. And one more thing, the evac site. Dozens of new vans were arriving. But they weren't bringing supplies. They were taking people away. I watched as one by one, the survivors were led into them, heads down. No one protested. No one asked questions. They didn't know they were disappearing. Not rescued. Removed. Lily sat beside me, watching the sunrise. "We're really alone now," she said. I nodded. "Yeah, but we're still here." "I'm scared." "So am I." She leaned against my arm. "But we're not like them," I said. "We didn't wait. We didn't trust the wrong people. We didn't follow the map, and we're still breathing. For now," she whispered. I smiled at that, a tired, broken kind of smile. Because she was right. We'd survived the first 12 hours. The world hadn't ended. Not yet. But it was changing. Fast. And I didn't know what was coming next, only that we were out here now, together. And as long as we stayed one step ahead, we had a chance. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.